Hello. I am tuning in with my mother, who is living in Tamaki Makaurau, Aotearoa, Auckland, New Zealand. And she is a historian, a writer, a creative, amazing brain. And I have very good on call chemistry with her. I've had her on my podcasts many a time. And so when I thought about what I could do to offer up a kind of in between space in between our regularly programmed schedule, I thought, bring on Randolph and have a wee chat. So specifically, I wanted to talk to you, Mama, about Wikipedia. It's like a topic that I'm always surprised at how often, but then also how little we talk about it. And I feel like the average Joe Schmo probably has some misconceptions about what Wikipedia is, and I'm a kind of Gen X millennial, and so my relationship to Wikipedia was when I was little, like younger. It was kind of like are you allowed to reference it in research? And then it became like absolutely a really critical part of my daily intake of information. I love Wikipedia-ing things, and I just think that you can almost create, like, your own little rabbit hole with it, but I figured, first and foremost, what's your relationship to Wikipedia?
Well, I'm an editor and a big user as well. And I have been an editor for a long time. When I was teaching history at the University of Kentucky, I required in one of my classes the creation of a Wikipedia article because there just weren't enough women in the Wikipedia overall, and still not a good representation of women and women's lives in Wikipedia. But so it's a matter of creating enough content. When I was first starting out in Wikipedia, it was about finding new ways to teach and new ways to, as a historian, explain to young scholars the difference between a tertiary source that is a holder of general knowledge, like an encyclopedia or a dictionary or a timeline, and a um, secondary source, which would include a strong thesis or hypothesis and would include original research and um, use of primary sources. That is, something that was created at the time, something that was directly related to the
Mm,
events
well,
under study.
yeah.
So those tertiary, secondary, and primary sources are really important for people to understand the differences as they are beginning their scholarly work. And the idea that, for example, even a newspaper article uh, could be uh, any one of those things,
Mm,
uh, tertiary, secondary, or primary source, depending on how you approach it or how it was created. So um, those are fun sort of mind problems to work on, and the best way to learn something, I think, is to actually interact with it and try to do it yourself. So that's what I was doing with Wikipedia. I'd say in the mid 2000s. It had first started up around 2000 and was asking for educators to take it on as a problem environment. And because I was one of the early users of it as an educational uh, site, um, uh, I was also interested in its governance. That is,
mm,
who who runs the place.
yeah.
And what I found out is that it's for those who um, are really involved, can be an exciting platform for really discussions about what it is we know, what it is that we consider general knowledge, and what we don't really know yet, or why things are left out of stories. All of those really important critical thinking components. So the idea that Wikipedia is something that's uh, just created out of nothing is really false. It is alive and changing, and I think a good reflection of what it is that people around the world. 'Cause it's not just English, of course; it's in different languages. So you could have an article about, let's say, an individual, a biography,
Mhm.
and it will be in English and have a particular set of facts or particular angle about that person, what's important, and that you would put in a table of contents. And then you read it in Danish and it's very
Oh,
different,
wow.
or French, and it could be very different. And it has to do with being able to support um, the statements with publicly available
Right,
resources. It's different in different places. So,
right. You talked about kind of in your early experience of being in that governance and editing space, a kind of tension between personality types that were auditing or doing, like, the quality assurance of those articles?
yes. So you have um, kind of gatekeeper
Right.
personalities that love this environment as um, for you to be a gatekeeper, it's pretty easy um, to say challenge the importance of
Mm.
something, because there are these legs on which a Wikipedia article stands. One of which is what they call notability,
Uh-huh.
and so for some people, um, I don't know, a military general is by default notable. Whereas I don't know, a woman business person is not by default notable. You have to kind of prove it. So all kinds of preconceived notions about what's important and what's important to archive, what's important to hold on, and what we call general knowledge is a product of our
Yeah.
times.
I mean, to be fair, your example just then, like, oh, a woman business woman, a business person who happens to be a woman, I you'd have to convince me about why a business person would be notable. Like,
Right.
can you give me a good example of a challenge of when you've had to go, "Well, duh, no, 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 this person is of note." You're just not used to is it because they're not used to seeing a woman in that role, or they're not used to seeing that role as notable?
They don't see it as notable, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, a woman who was an officer in a women's club
Mhm.
um, would be somebody that I'd want to make sure was in Wikipedia so that everybody could see how that club was organized and the infrastructure around it. So, what should I do now?
Should silence your phone unless it's urgent.
Across the room.
I will wait.
Um, so the idea of uh, that that woman as being notable um, has to be uh, supported way that's different from saying that a man, because he was in a particular part of the military, whether or not he did anything, I mean, he could be a desk jockey for all we know, and that uh, doesn't have that same sort of uh,
No, I totally get
need
that.
for women importance.
Yeah, because I mean, unless
But
you kind
that's
of
the thing is that Wikipedia, there's a talk page. So, somebody's going around saying, okay, so this is not anybody that's notable. You can on the talk page talk back
Mhm.
and say, this is what I think that person is notable. And,
Yeah.
eventually it trickles up into various um, groups of people who've gained an authority within the Wikipedia community, and those people make a decision. And um, I've I have lost a couple of people because I didn't, fight hard enough. The Kentucky women are, for example, I was doing Kentucky women's history. Kentucky women often hide themselves uh, from newspapers or from public record, and yet have done some astounding things. And so it's important for us to sort of pull them up, even if it's just a small stub in Wikipedia, because other things might be eventually found. But I've lost people because I couldn't do anything other than say an obituary in a newspaper. That's all I had. And so down she goes.
Mm, bitter. That's bittersweet. I mean, I think what you're doing kind of redefining what's, valuable for us to put the puzzle pieces together about where we come from and how we've gotten to where we have gotten to, but also, like, the dedication and stick-to-itiveness of fighting for different stories to be surfaced and be made available. I mean, it's really cool to me to think about these hidden conversations that happen within, the Wikipedia community. I've always been fascinated with, um, that history is living and editable and constantly evolving, and I feel like that's a really good example of that, like a use case in action when you're just trying to actually, well, hang on, why is this important? Why do we need to include this in some kind of, you know, I guess my question though is why why so stringent on notability if, the internet is, an infinite amount of space. Like, why do you have to be so stringent on notability? Like, what are the parameters of notability that you like and don't like?
Okay. Yeah. So in a tertiary source, the idea is that the information would be of value to a very wide
Mm,
audience. Secondary sources, you could have, a fictionalized memoir of your great aunt that was an important person to yourself, but nobody else. And you could self publish that, and
ah,
that's
gotcha,
lovely. But was your great aunt somebody that should be in a tertiary
gotcha.
source? Just because she was important to you doesn't mean that she's important to a wider audience.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the tertiary sources like dictionaries um, and that's different also from, let's say, there are plenty of people who made money off of things called, well, the who's who of whatever. I don't mean to focus on a particular company, but there were all kinds of books like that were published um, that people would pay to put their names and their um, activities in. Well, those really are different from what a good tertiary source should
Right.
be. Just because you have money to have your name put in something doesn't mean that it's valid for a dictionary or. encyclopedia.
Yeah. Um, most people will know when you go onto Wikipedia, there's like a plea to fund it. Do you know
Mhm.
much about um, why they started doing that and where that money goes?
Well, the fundraising was all along.
Oh,
They just put it in front of your face, especially when the big companies started making money off of Wikipedia. So the idea that Wikipedia is just going along using volunteer efforts, um, which it was at the beginning, that continues to, um, you know, the majority of articles are written by people who do it as a
mhm,
volunteer. But search engines make money off of advertising next to information that they've skimmed off of Wikipedia. So, you know, and Facebook does it too. So, I mean, there's all kinds of people that are making money off of the information that goes through, pretty um, rigorous standard of
yeah,
quality for publication. So you could, it's true, put gibberish up on Wikipedia because it's open. Uh, but that's the whole concept of open access is yes, you can publish to it, but will it stay published? And so, uh, not only the use of robots, but also individuals. If you're writing in a particular, like I'm part of Wiki Women project, Women in Red project, and the idea is that there are bots constantly going through Wikipedia finding where somebody has put a woman's name in what they say in red, and that means that they've indicated that this person doesn't have an
mhm,
article yet, but they would want it, and so that person is added into a list, and these kinds of things are done by robots. The grabbing of
right.
that and put into that, then somebody who's a volunteer would go in and work on it, or librarians are our best allies because they hold uh, wiki edit-a-thons. The idea is that they say, okay, here's all of these wonderful in print sources. Let's get that information out into the public digitally.
Nice.
Um, and that would allow, but you have to write
Yeah.
it. You can't just, copy and paste. So, because there are plenty of dictionaries and encyclopedias that are up that libraries purchase digitally, but you can't just steal
Mm,
that and put it out on
mhm.
media. You have to write fresh and new and say it's in that place.
I love that idea of, like, edit-a-thons. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it's so fun. I did that a lot at the University of Kentucky and really enjoyed it. And there's, a fun camaraderie that goes on with that.
Oh, and I love that you're part of the Women in Red project. It's to me, that's such a pivotal demonstration of who you are, finding the missing pieces and going, "Yeah, yep, I will tell their stories."
Yeah. So there's always, some new campaign that happens, and there's a real strong emphasis here in New Zealand on getting New Zealand people up and out into Wikipedia. There was in the 80s, well funded, and 80s and 90s, a well funded um, campaign in the federal government here uh, for building digital dictionary, like the Dictionary of New Zealand or Te
I
Ara.
love to
But what happens is different governments decide whether or not
support it.
it's worthy of
Right.
funding, and it dies or flares up when it can. So, Wikipedia just depends on people's
Mm,
passions and not on government
Mm.
funding. So it's a whole different ball. I was sad when I saw I was in some Facebook group where somebody in the New Zealand Ministry of Health, History and Culture uh, considered Wikipedia to be a competitor, and it is not. Uh, Things like, you know, Te Ara is a very different publication and shouldn't see Wikipedia as a competitor. It could be seen as maybe a launching point, or it could be seen as a place where
It's one more place where links
people that
could
don't
be
have,
living in. Yeah.
yeah, and people they don't have access to generally, or they didn't know about them, could all of a sudden become known to them. So um, uh, it's as much it could be an important ally rather than a competitor.
Yeah. That is a strange attitude. Yeah, like I don't have any more questions per se, but I think it might be helpful to think about what the different uses of Wikipedia are and what that means to you. So like for me, Wikipedia is more of a pastime and a like a fun, you know, little rabbit hole opportunity for me. Um, which
Well, people will say, "Oh, you go Google that," and Wikipedia usually is what Google has given
exactly.
you, or now what the AI has stolen off of it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But for you, it's how much time do you think you devote to Wikipedia in your monthly existence?
But yeah, no, so it depends. So I was really committed last year to making sure that I got as many of the women that I was working on for the suffrage projects, um, or a couple of years ago, uh, had um, either if they had a stub already, that I would expand it, or if they didn't have anything, I would put up something. So, for example, uh, Lily Lily Mae Kirk, who married Atkinson, um, uh, she had a little stub, but I added her and her mother and her sisters, you know, because she wasn't just all by herself talking to Kate Shepard all by themselves. There was a crowd of 'em. And a good example is John Plemmer of Wellington, an important, businessman in Wellington. And his second wife, Janet Plemmer, becomes an important national voice for women's suffrage. Kate Shepard mentions her in several reports, but she doesn't have um, an article. She's just mentioned as a wife. So it's just when I get passionate enough about it, I'll start her up
Yeah.
and see how it goes.
Yeah. It speaks to where our, idea of status and influence lie, when I think about a politician or, a military figure or, somebody who helped establish a town. Those are kind of very, um, outwardly kind of different measurable metrics than somebody who was part of a social change movement. Where so I can totally understand how people are just not trained to appreciate the histories of really influential peoples within a complex social movement that sought to, seek equal representation and justice for women. Like that's like how do you measure that? You can measure it by like,
Right.
the specific achievement or a goal, but it's really hard to measure the outputs of a key influential figure, even if somebody who was already out there has mentioned them being important. I could just see how our societal wirings aren't set up to equate the importance of somebody that like maybe helped establish a town to somebody who helped establish like a societal norm that we just take for granted now. Like, it's a
Cool.
very
That's a
fascinating thing to
really
me.
nice way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
think
awesome.
there's I think there's still work to be done around how appreciating um, important figures in this world. And I'm really grateful that you've given me the kind of values and um, goals and aspirations that you have because they're not as obvious and it's not as statusy and powerful sounding as you know oh I'm just in politics or whatever. um I love Wikipedia and I just love that you interact with it on both ends of the portal, that you're on the user side and also the creation side and the storytelling side. Do you have any um, kind of emergent thoughts about your relationship with Wikipedia, or you think that the world's relationship with Wikipedia that deserves mentioning?
Well, I think as we get deeper into the use of AI, it's really easy for AI to learn how to start a Wikipedia article, and um, I'm I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Yeah, because they could be the robot could have been picking up something from all of the books that they digested, millions of books, um, and picked up something and then decided, oh, I'm going to insert it in this tertiary environment. But it will still require some moderation.
What the heck?
What
Sorry about.
does that mean?
I have no idea.
I think
It's me. I think the only thing that would scare me about that, like AI creating Wikipedia or starting to create Wikipedia articles, would be if they're on the other side as well, approving a bot. Like if AI is over here creating something and AI is over here approving it, that's potentially where it becomes really scary.
well, no. So it takes a
Yep.
village. Yep. And it takes
Yep.
time. So even if there's an AI who's trained how to, um, it's not that it's approved, it's that it's not deleted.
Yes.
Let me see,
Yeah. I know.
right? So what would be scary is if an AI all of a sudden went in and started deleting, everything about women, like they have on
Oh
websites.
Jesus.
They get so that would be scary, but it'd be on somebody's server somewhere, so we could get it back.
Cool. Okay, Mama. Um, Thank you for our little chat about Wikipedia. Thank
Well, thank you. It was fun to think about.
you. And hope to have you back again soon. I love you so much.
Okay, I love you.
Bye.
Bye.